I'm Dave Farah, my wife Cathy, and we're going to just start right into our set here. We're going to start up here ourselves. And the concert will go through the afternoon to about 5:30. There's going to be a break, I think, at 3 o'clock, somewhere in there, a break for about a half an hour. And it gives you a chance to meet the other performers here, the other artists here at the festival, and maybe check out their records and tables and stuff like that. And we'll get into a larger introduction after as more people come up. But I can tell you that the festival is organized by the historic Arrowrock Council, which is the group of folks here that keep Arrowrock the great state park that it is. And they're, of course, supported by the Missouri Arts Council. And then we have a donation that's requested of you all. So if you can find it, we'll get into more of this later. We're looking forward to this festival. We got some great people to have here this afternoon.
I will start with the tune here, the one that I actually didn't get to in the workshop. I just played briefly. A song that really has no particular social significance, but it's a fun song to sing anyway. It's just about, it's a courtship song, I guess you could say. There's a fragment of it in Vance Randolph's Ozarks folk songs. The version I'm singing actually comes from a recording duet in country music from years ago called Lulu Bell and Scotty. It's a tune called Going to Little Creek.
Choruses get more and more difficult. So try this with us if you would. I'm going to be so long, going to be so long, going to be so long, see that damn mind. I'm going to be so long, going to be so long, going to be so long, see that damn mind. Go
get Cathy to set up over here at the hammer dulcimer and play a couple of tunes for you. The first one is one that's actually fairly popular in the folk scene, one called Midnight on the Water. And the second one is a tune popular around this part of the country called The Forked Deer. It's also a popular tune, I would imagine, throughout the United States among fiddlers.
Actually, Midnight on the Water is more popular out east. I've not heard any fiddlers playing it much around here, but certainly Forked Deer comes under it. I'm really close to you all. You can look right at me. Do you feel conspicuous at all?
I promise I'll let her stand up for the next song. I'm going to stand up.
ballads. I guess Bob Dyer will soon discover this one. Got to give you about time to do one ballad. I will do one anyway.
This is a sea sailing ballad, really. But it did make its way over the United States, all over the United States.
It's collected here in Missouri too, in the Ozarks. A song called "The Mermaid." We had that movie out there for a while, that wonderful new Disney classic, The Little Mermaid. But in earlier times, if you were a sailor and you saw a mermaid, that was very bad news. And this song will basically show you how. As I cruised out on a fine summer's eve, all out of sight of land, spied a mermaid sitting on a rock with a comb and glass in her hand. This little mermaid sprang into the deep, and the wind began to blow. Rain and hail so dark in the air, we will never see land anymore. Oh, the wind, how it does blow. Oh, the stormy seas, how they roar. One for a sailor struggling in the deep, and for the landlord safe on the shore. Well, first on deck was the captain of our ship. Fine looking fellow was he. Says we're lost for the want of a hope, and we'll lie at the bottom of the sea. I have a wife, I have 3 little babes. I they'll be waiting for me. They may wait till the salt sea dries. For I'll be at the bottom of the sea. Next on deck was our little cabin boy. Mean-looking fellow was he. Says I care no more for my wife and my babes than I do for the bottom of the sea. Nine times round spun our gallant ship. 9 times round spun the sea. 9 times round spun our gallant ship. And she sank to the bottom of the sea. Oh, the getting the bad looks back there.
We have to explain. Tom has a wonderful thing about banjo. I try to play banjo every time, every chance I get.
Tom has nightmares about banjos.
I'd like to do two tunes that we learned from a fiddler that may show up later on. It depends on the schedule, but I learned this from a fiddler named Taylor McCann, who's often performed with us and a wonderful friend. These are first tune is one called Spotted Pony, and the second one here's a tune called Dance Around Home.
Finish up with another little dulcimer tune here for you, and we'll move on. The Hipstone Races. A race somewhere in Italy, I'm told. Schroeder from Independence was here doing an autoharp workshop earlier this morning. Some of you were in that. Tom was and is still the 1985 autoharp champion. There's no other autoharp champion in 1985. It's still Tom. There's no other chance after him. So he's still that, and he's known. He's becoming well known in the autoharp world, in the growing autoharp world, for his treatment of traditional tunes, dance tunes on the autoharp, and has written a book on for autoharp music of traditional dance music of Missouri. And he's being accompanied all the time, part of the time by his wife Liz, who later this evening, after you're all filled with after the pig supper, we'll have a square dance in this room, and Liz will get the little piggies out there dancing. So please let me get off here and give Tom and Liz a warm welcome.
Very happy to be here. I know this little town, one of the festivals here, a couple of years ago. I also want to thank Dave and Cathy for sending me to the corner of the schoolroom as soon as I got here, because it felt real familiar to me being in a classroom, and being put in the corner immediately. It was just like I was back in school again. We're going to start out with a little tune that comes from the Mormon Trail. Liz and I happen to live just a few blocks away from what was the Santa Fe Trail. I guess it still is. Now there happen to be Wendy's and 7-Elevens on the Santa Fe Trail, but we just live a few blocks from there. So we get to think about trails a lot, and this one is a trail tune. It basically proves to me that the way that the men anyway made it across those long days of walking across the prairie was by thinking about women. And this tune happens to be about this man's thoughts as he's walking across the prairie with his wagon train. And most of the tune, you're going to hear him talking to his two oxen, who are Jerry Boy and Buck. With a merry little jog and a gay little song, whoa, Buck and Jerry Boy, we trudge our way the whole day long. Whoa, Buck and Jerry Boy. But though covered all over with dust, it's better than staying at home to rust. Reach Salt Lake someday or bust. Whoa, Buck and Jerry Boy. There's a pretty little girl in the outfit ahead. Whoa, Buck and Jerry Boy. I wish she was by my side instead. Whoa, Buck and Jerry Boy. Look at her now with a pout on her lips. She daintily with her fingertips picks for twice and buffalo chips. Whoa, Buck and Jerry Boy. Tonight we'll dance by the light of the moon. Whoa, Buck and Jerry Boy, to the fiddler's best and only tune. Whoa, Buck and Jerry Boy. Left into your corner and right to your own. Circle up left and promenade home. Bow to your corner and swing your own. Whoa, Buck and Jerry Boy. and Jerry boy trudge our way the whole day long. Whoa, Pop and Jerry boy. What the covered all over with dust, it's better than staying at home to rust. We'll reach Salt Lake someday or bust. Whoa, Pop and Jerry boy. Thank you all. a tune from mid-Missouri called Smokey Moke. This is a tune from my album that I have available here. This is a tune that's played in the northern part of Missouri is a waltz a lot, but it's really a Scottish jig. First heard it from a Scottish bagpipe band, and I decided I'd try to imitate a Scottish bagpipe band on the autoharp. So here's my humble attempt to do that. Seeing Saddam Hussein with those children on the videotape reminded me of on how to do this tune. This is a tune by a songwriter from Columbia, Missouri, called John Corbin. He has kind of a, I don't know, I guess you'd call it a new age rock and roll album. But anyway, I like this tune from it, kind of arranged it more traditionally. And it's a tune about the Civil War from a child's perspective. There's many historical accounts from families that went through the Civil War in this area where when the raiders would come through to take everything away from the farm in order for the
He bought his freedom. And then he got married. Well, his wife was still a slave. And when her slave master moved to Missouri, Uncle Aaron pulled up stakes and he moved to Missouri too. Now soon Uncle Aaron bought his wife, and then he bought a farm. And they say he was real rich, but he was awfully tight. So Uncle Aaron and his wife would sit out on the porch, and the mailman would come by, and he'd say, "Uncle Aaron, did you get any mail today?" So Uncle Aaron said, "Oh yeah, we got a lot of wish mail. Aunt May's over here wishing for this and wishing for that." But he never would buy anything because he thought he had bought her and he had bought the farm, and that was enough. But one day she was looking through this mail order catalog, and she said, "Now, Uncle Aaron, I want to have this bake pan. I like this bake pan, and I think you ought to buy it for me." So Uncle Aaron looked at it, and as tight as he was, he said, "Well, I do like it myself, so I guess I'll buy it." So they ordered this bake pan. Well, about 2 weeks later, the mailman rode in on his horse, and he said, "Uncle Aaron, I think you got something at the post office." So Uncle Aaron said, "Well, I guess it's that bake pan." So he went to the post office, and the package was there. And the postman said, "Well, Uncle Aaron, you got your package. I hope you're going to be happy." So Uncle Aaron said, "Well, just hold on 1 minute now. Let me see what's in this package. Let me see if that's what I ordered." So the postman opened up the package for Uncle Aaron. You know you're not supposed to do that. But in those days, you could do a lot of things you can't do now. Well, Uncle Aaron looked at that. He said, "I'm not paying for that." So the postman said, "Well, didn't you order a bake pan?" Uncle Aaron said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, isn't this the bake pan you ordered?" Uncle Aaron said, "No, sirree. The bake pan I ordered had a chicken in it." Thank you. As most of you know, we all have preconceived notions or stereotypes or whatever you want to call them about each other. We all think we know each other. Black people think they know everything that whites do, the good and the bad, and white people think they know everything that blacks do, the good and the bad, but we don't really get to know each other.
And if he were alive today, I think Jesse James would attest to that. Jesse James had robbed a bank, and him and some of his partners came to Missouri. And they were trying to find out where they were going to hide this money until things kind of cooled off. Well, they went around town and they listened to some of the talk and some of the gossip, and they heard that black people were afraid of dead people, were afraid to go into cemeteries and that they couldn't read. So they said, well, we'll hide our money in the black cemetery. In the meantime, Jimmy James, whose real name was James James, who changed his name to Jimmy because he didn't want two last names, was in a lot of trouble, and he was hiding from the law. Well, Jimmy James was black, and he wasn't afraid of nothing. So he went and hid up in a tree in the black cemetery. Well, in the meantime, when Jesse James and his partners came and dug up this ground and buried their money in this cemetery, Jimmy James looked down there, and he listened to them. And Jesse James took a tombstone and wrote on the tombstone, dead and buried. Well, now, you know what Jimmy James did. You know he came down out of that tree. And you know he dug up that money. And he left. And when Jesse James and his gang came back, they looked at the tombstone, and it said, risen and gone. So it just goes to show you, you need to find out about people before you make assumptions, or you may lose your money. Now, as I said before, one of the dominant things that we have in black culture is religion. And sometimes we're just very, very serious, especially in slavery days, it was very, very serious. But then there's always the humor side. Black people like to make each other laugh, because that is a time when you're laughing, you can forget about your troubles. And I think nowadays we all like to do that because there's so many troubles in the world. So we all kind of like to make each other laugh. And one of the things in religion that people talked about a lot were preachers. Well, they say that there was a preacher's meeting in a tent. And before I get to that, I want to tell you a little bit about how we used to do during slavery. Now, during slavery, black people were not allowed to worship. It was against the law to worship. But they did it anyway. They'd sneak down sometimes at midnight and worship down in the valley when everybody else was asleep. And if there was going to be a religious meeting, one of the code songs that they sang was Steal Away. How many of you know Steal Away? Well, let's do that. Steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away, steal away home. I ain't got long to stay. My Lord, He calls me by the thunder. The trumpet sounds within my soul. I ain't got long to stay. So steal away, steal away, steal away to Jesus. Steal away, steal away home. I ain't got long to stay. And if the field workers heard that song, they knew there was going to be a worship meeting. And then later on, if they'd had the worship meeting and they were too loud, somebody would be singing, hush, hush, Somebody's calling my name. Hush, hush. Somebody's calling my name. Oh, hush, hush. Somebody's calling my name. Oh, my Lord, oh, my Lord, what shall I do? Well, then we moved after slavery from worship in the plantations to worship in the tents. We would have these big rallies and worships in the tents. Well, one time there were these preachers who were having this worship service, and they preached about Revelations and John the Revelator, and they preached about Noah, and they preached about just about everything in the Bible. So then they had a break, and the preachers talked with each other during the break, and they said, now, brothers, you know, we've been preaching real hard, and we've been trying to tell people how to live. We want to do the right thing ourselves, don't we? And the brother said, amen. So they said, well, you know, in order to do the right thing, we have to do some confessing. We have to cleanse our souls. Then he said, well, who wants to be the first one to do that? Well, nobody wanted to be the first one to do that. So he said, okay, well, I'm going to be the leader. I'm going to be the conscience of the preachers. Brothers, I must confess, I've got a weakness. My weakness is corn liquor. I just drink so much corn liquor sometimes I can't get up in the morning. Please pray for me, pray for me. So the brother said, yes, we'll pray for you. We're only human. Nobody's perfect. Then they said, well, who's going to be next? So the next one got up. He said, my confession is that I'm just pure lazy. I just am so lazy. Now, I can deal with my congregation from 9 to 5, but I don't like none of that overtime. And some of these sinners, I know they need overtime. So they said, well, we'll pray for you, brother, because we're all sinners. There's nobody perfect in this room. And everybody said their amens, and they waited for a while. Pretty soon, another preacher got up. He said, well, my sin is worse than anybody's. My sin is gambling. And I've gambled so I've gambled up some of the church's money. He said, you know I'm in trouble. And they said, yes, you are. And we sure are going to pray for you. Well, they went on down the line. Everybody had a sin, and every sin was worse than the other. Except this one preacher who just sat there listening, just real quiet. So the leader said, oh, we got a perfect preacher here. Perfect preacher. Get up and tell us how you got to be so perfect. So the preacher got up. He said, brothers, I hate to tell you this. I'm not perfect. He said, in fact, my sin is probably going to make you upset. Because, brothers, my sin is that I love to gossip. And I can't wait to get out of this room. There's a story that some black people tell their children. It originated in Africa. And it's about Kigbo. And usually it's told to children when they're obstinate, when they think they know everything, when they don't want to do what they're told, when they think you are so dumb. And most children think we are dumb. My son thought we were ancient. And I told him this story. Now, Kigbo's story originated in Nigeria. And Kigbo was just obstinate, just bad. If you said yes, he said no. If you said it was right, he said it was wrong. If you went left, he'd go right. He was just obstinate. But then they thought, well, maybe Kigbo's not all bad because he grew up and he got married. And he married a woman called Delapo. And they had a son called Ojo. Well, when the father saw that Kigbo was really being a good husband, he had built his own hut, He said, well, maybe there's hope for this boy. I'm going to go over there and talk to him and talk about doing some farming. And he went over there. He said, Kidbo, it's time to plant. Let's plant near our house. People say, oh, no, I don't want to plant near the house. The father said, well, Kidbo, where would you plant? I want to plant away from the house. I want to go far away. I don't want to plant near the house. So the father said, well, Kidbo, did you know there are bush spirits out there far from the house, and you will get hurt? Kidbo said, oh, you old-fashioned people want to do things the old way all the time. Not me. I don't believe in bush spirits. I'm going to plant in the bush. Kidbo's father tried to get his mother to talk to him. She couldn't do any good. They tried to get the elders to talk to him. They couldn't do any good. So Kidbo told his wife to pack his knife and pack his knapsack, and he was going in the bush. And he did. Well, he walked a long, long way, and when he got to the bush, he took out his knife and he started whacking down the bushes. And all of a sudden, he heard a voice. And the voice said, what are you doing here? And Kidbo said, I'm chopping down this bush because I'm going to plant here. So then a lot of voices came out, and they started chopping the bushes. And they said, this is our land. Whatever you do, we will do too. And they chopped the bush. Well, this made Kidbo quite excited because this made his parents wrong. And he went back, and they said, well, Kidbo, how come you're back so soon? He said, I've got lots of land ready for my corn. Not only did the bush spirits, which you call them, help me, they welcomed me there. I knew I was right. Well, he told his wife to get his corn seeds ready, and he went out and he started planting the corn. And of course, the bush spirits came in again. They said, what are you doing? He said, I'm planting corn. You want to help me again? Just come on. So he said, this is our land. Whatever you do, we will do too. And they started planting the corn. Well, after all the corn was planted, Kidbo went off to visit his friend to wait for harvest time. And then when he didn't return home, Delapo got worried. And she waited and she waited. They didn't hear any word from him. So they went looking for Kidbo, Delapo and her son Ojo. Well, by the time they got there, the corn was all ready. And Ojo said, I'm hungry, I want to eat. Well, it wasn't harvest time, but there was corn there. So Delapo said, Ojo, you're just going to have to wait. I cannot pick this corn yet. We have to wait for your father. But Ojo said, no, I'm hungry. I want to eat now. You know how babies are. So Delapo picked a piece of the corn off and gave it to Ojo. Well, the bush spirits came out. And they said, this is our land. Whatever you do, we will do too. So they picked off all the corn, threw it on the ground. Well, when Kidbo came and saw all this corn wasted on the ground, he was too upset. He said, what have you done? What have you done? And she told him what happened. And Kidbo hit his head and said, oh no. And the bush spirit said, this is our land. Whatever you do, we will do too. So all the bush spirits started hitting Kidbo in the head too. So Kidbo grabbed his wife and she had their son, and they ran and they ran and they ran. And when they got home, Kidbo went inside. He was so ashamed. He didn't have anything to show for all his obstinance, for all of his smart alecky stuff. He didn't have a thing to show. The next day, his father went to his hut and he said, "Kigbo, it's time that we could do a second planting. Would you like to plant near the house?" Kigbo said, "Yes, Father. Yes, I'll be glad to plant near the house." So Kigbo learned his lesson. Well, I see Dave shaking his head. I was ready to go on. I love to talk. I never even told my name in 20 minutes. But if it's time to go, it's time to go. Thank you very much.
Dennis will be back after the break. Let's see. While I try to get some microphones together, I can tell you what we're about here again. The Boonswick Country Folk Festival. Again, this is organized by the historic Arrowrock Council. And it's also funded largely by the Missouri Arts Council. And it's also being funded by your requested donation. There's a jar over there on the counter. It would cost, it would be a pretty high ticket price if we were going to try to make this festival pay for itself simply on admission, but I feel like there's a contribution involved there. So please be aware of that. What else can I tell you? Well, it's not just a folk festival for music and entertainment and performance. I think it tends to distance the art form from the audience. And so we try to bring out the folk singers and the storytellers and all of us here. And all of these, the folks here are not only just musicians and performers, but many of us are good resources of information. We have members of the Missouri Folklore Society here, for example, if you're interested in folklore, and they can tell you about that. We have members of the Missouri State Old-Time Fiddlers Association, if you're interested in fiddling here in this. And of course, the folks at Arrowrock, Ginny was here. Ginny and Tempe Tempe McLaughlin is over here. Tempe's helped organize the festival as well. And you can get a lot of information out of these folks about various facets of folk culture in Missouri. Well, let me get our next guest up here, our friend Bob Dyer from Boonville, Missouri, sometimes called lovingly by his friends the Bard of Boonville. Sometimes, well, anyway. Sometimes not. Anyway, Bob has, of course, written some great songs that Cathy and I and others have performed and recorded. And he's hot on the process of recording a new album, and he's working on a song book of his song, which both of these should be, it's in that production phase sometime in the next month or so. And of course, he wrote an illustrated history of the town of Boonville, his hometown, which is a wonderful book of its kind. And that's all I can actually say about him. Please welcome Bob Dyer.
How close do I have to be? Hello, hello, hello.
Is that okay, Guard?
Yeah, that's all right. Well, I'm going to sing you a few songs from this new record album I'm working on. I think most of these songs will be new to even those of you who have heard me before. But they're sort of in the same style. What I do is write songs about the history of the state, the Missouri River especially, and my area over there around Boonville, the Boonswick region, which Arrowrock is actually part of too. And I have a couple of songs here that are fairly close to things that have happened around Arrowrock here also. So either during this set or the next one, I'll hit more or less of these songs. This first one's the title song of the new record, which is going to be called Treasure in the River. And it's about the attempt to, at least one of the things it's about, is the attempt to dig up that steamboat. Here, 3 or 4 years ago, some fellows from Independence tried to dig up an old Missouri River steamboat in the river bottoms over across from where the Lamine River comes into the Missouri. They thought the boat was going to have $250,000 in gold and silver on it because there's an old treasure story that's been around this Boone's Lick region for 100 years or more about a boat that sunk supposedly in 1819, the very first year steamboats came up the Missouri River. And it was supposedly part of Long's Yellowstone expedition, which was the first government expedition up the Missouri River to attempt to use steamboats. The expedition was largely a failure, but it did kind of inaugurate the era of steamboating on the Missouri River. Well, this boat that had all this money was supposedly carrying money to pay these soldiers from Long's Yellowstone expedition. But the more I checked the story out, the more far-fetched the whole thing became. And I tried to convince these fellows from Independence that they were barking up the wrong tree, so to speak. On the other hand, I was curious to see if they could find a boat over there, because at least 5 steamboats sunk in that bend, which was called Slaughterhouse Bend. And most of them are probably still there, parts of them out in those fields on the other side of the river. The river's channel, of course, has changed several times since then. And where the river was at the time most of those boats sunk is now out in the fields there. So you dig down about 30 feet, and if you've got the right technology to do it, you're bound to hit something down there. And that's what these guys did. They spent $250,000 digging the boat up and did find a boat. But all it really had on it, which is what I knew all along it was going to have on it, was a bunch of old rotten pork barrels and some old flour barrels and a few odds and ends of things. So they, in their lust to see if the gold and silver was really there, they tore the boat completely to pieces with backhoes and heavy equipment. And then when they didn't find anything, they covered it all the pieces back up again, which I wasn't real happy about because the boat was largely intact when they first got to it. So they destroyed essentially what we determined to be an 1820 steamboat, the Missouri Packet, which would have been one of the earliest steamboats that anybody would have ever seen. Nobody's ever seen a steamboat that old. And they tore it to pieces. So that's what this song is kind of related to. There's many a steamboat been wrecked on this river, the bends and the islands still echo with their names. Like the Berkman and the Coral, Diana and Euphrasia, the Malta and the Playboy, Iatan and the Tamarack. Well, they burned up and they blown up, then sunk by snags and sawyers, and some were later salvaged, but some were never raised. And you still hear the stories of great unrecovered treasures lying in the bottoms in 100 unmarked graves. I don't know if there's a treasure in the river, I don't know what lies buried in the sand. All I know is that the river is for gamblers, the seekers after fortune, often hold the losing hand. There's a story of a steamboat in the year of 1819 went down by Parson Franklin up by Slaughterhouse Bend. And they say she had a fortune in gold and silver specie that was never recovered. still lies there in the sun. Well, they say that she was part of that fated expedition led by Major Stephen Long and his Western engineer. But no boat like that is listed among Long's other steamboats, and the nature of his cargo isn't really all that clear. I don't know if there's a treasure in the river. I don't know what lies there in the sand. All I know is that the river is for gamblers and the seekers after fortune, on the road to losing hand. Well, ever since that day, there's been people tried to find her, but the river's face has changed at least 1,000 times since then. And there's more than one steamboat gone down and been buried up by what was once an island in Slaughterhouse Bend. Well, not too long ago, there were some men who tried to find her. Well, not too long ago, there were some men who thought they found her, and they tore both to splinters, seeking out they didn't find. Well, it's strange how blind we get in our lust for gold and silver, and often miss the treasure right there before our eyes. I don't know if there's a treasure in the river. I don't know what lies there in the sand. All I know is that the river is for gamblers and the seekers after fortune, on the road to losing hand. Well, this next song is a steamboat song also. There's a lot of tall tales connected with the river, and one I ran across at a fairly early time in my research into the history of Boonville was a story that was told by an old river rat who used to live in Boonville, a fellow who had worked on the river most of his life, named Wilbur Haley. And the story, I really liked the story when I first read it, and I thought that was the only place I would ever find that story. But in checking around, I found out that there were versions of this story all over the place, on the Mississippi River as well as the Missouri River. And it's a story about a legendary steamboat. A steamboat that was supposed to have been built to conquer the muddy Missouri River. The Missouri River was kind of a nightmare for steamboaters. It was a much more difficult river to navigate than the Mississippi. There were a lot of stories about wrecks and attempts to avoid wrecks, and legendary captains and pilots on the river who were able to do wonders with their boats. And this story is one of that type. It has to do with the fact that the old mountain pilots, as the story went, decided they were going to build a boat that would defeat the river. All the bends in the river that caused so much trouble. So they built this gigantic boat that was hinged. The hull was hinged so it could go around the bends in the river. And it had 40 big rubber boilers. The boilers were made out of rubber, and when the pressure would build up in it, they would expand out over the edges of the boat, and it would help them float over the sandbars and that sort of thing. The story was that the boat took all summer to pass by the town of Boonville, and that Wilbur Haley, the man that told the story, said that that's when he first started working on the river. The boat was still around, he said. He got off, he was on the crew that was on the bow of the boat, and he got off there at Boonville, as it was going by, and he spent the whole summer before he got back on at the stern and got to like Boonville so well, he came back to live there. There were hundreds of stories about this boat at any rate. So what I did was I took a few of these stories and put them together in a song. Well, you heard about the Natchez and the Robert E. Lee, famous Grand Public and the Big Bell Key. But the greatest floating palace that ever there's been was a paddle wheel steamer called the Jim Johnson. Look out for she's a-coming up the river, and oh Lord, she's a-building up steam. Good God, she's as big as a mountain, it's the biggest damn steamboat I ever have seen. Now, if you don't mind saying the word damn, you could sing that chorus along with me. You could say dang, I guess. Look out for she's a-coming up the river, and oh Lord, she's a-building up steam. Good God, she's as big as a mountain, that's the biggest damn steamboat I ever have seen. She had 40 rubber boilers and a 40-inch tall, 40 big smokestacks, 40 feet tall. She had 4 big side wheels and 2 at the stern. The paddles took the day just to make a full turn. Say, look out, boy, she's a-coming up the river, and oh Lord, she's a-building up steam. Good God, she's as big as a mountain, it's the biggest damn steamboat I ever have seen. Well, she could slide through the bends of the mean muddy road when the river was flooding or the river was low. And said she took 3 months just to pass by a town. People came to see her from miles around. I said, look out, boy, she's coming up the river, and oh Lord, she's a-building up steam. Good God, she's as big as a mountain, it's the biggest damn steamboat I ever have seen. Look out, Lord, she's coming up the river, and oh Lord, she's building up steam. Good God, she's as big as a mountain, it's the biggest damn steamboat I ever have seen. Well, the Jim Johnson ate enough wood on the run to build 50 courthouses in a big-sized town. And with a full load of passengers, provisions, and freight, she could declare herself an independent floating state. Well, look out, boy, she's coming up the river, and oh Lord, she's a-building up steam. Good God, she's as big as a mountain, it's the biggest damn steamboat I ever have seen. Well, Jim Johnson finally was a mighty big man. He weighed 700 pounds and stood 8 feet 10. He had one good eye in the middle of his head, and a voice that could raise up people from the dead. I said, look out, boy, she's coming up the river, and oh Lord, she's a-building up steam. Good God, she's as big as a mountain, it's the biggest damn steamboat I ever have seen. I said, look out, boy, she's coming up the river, and oh Lord, she's a-building up steam. Good God, she's as big as a mountain, it's the biggest damn steamboat I ever have seen. Well, another one of my favorite Missouri characters, I guess you'd say. I've known about this critter for a long time and always wanted to write a song about old Jim the Wonder Dog, so I finally did. Jim the Wonder Dog. How many of you know about Jim the Wonder Dog? Hey, all right. Is Mr. Housel here? I don't know. There's a man over at Sedalia who's kind of the main promoter of the Jim the Wonder Dog tales around Missouri. He's trying to get the post office department right now to make a Jim the Wonder Dog stamp. He's trying to enlist as many people as he can to write the post office department and say they think there ought to be a stamp of Jim the Wonder Dog. So if you Maybe I might have the address here I can give to you. There's a book about Jim the Wonder Dog that they sell here in Arrowrock. That this Mr. Howsam actually owns the copyright on. And there's several interesting articles about Jim the Wonder Dog in various places. The Missouri Folklore Journal ran an interesting article about Jim. Jim was a Llewellyn English setter who was born in 1925, I believe, in Louisiana, and was from a long line of pedigreed, well-known field dogs. His sire was a dog named Eugene's Ghost, and his great-grandsire was known as the fabulous chicken champion dog, Candy Kid. And there are a number of other well-known field dogs in Jim's line. But Jim, as the story went, was, now Jim's a real dog, remember? Jim was kind of the runt of the litter of the dogs that were born to this line, and was sent as a gift to a man named Sam Van Arsdale who lived in West Ames, Missouri at the time. That's kind of a joke. And as the dog grew up, Sam tried to train it to hunt birds, and it didn't seem to be doing too well hunting birds. But it was a nice dog for his kids, so he kept it around. And then he started realizing that the dog seemed to be more intelligent than the normal dog, that it seemed to respond to all kinds of questions in a kind of an uncanny, eerie way. It could pick out, you could ask the dog to do things, and the dog would do it, without any further instruction. So Sam Van Arsdale eventually moved up to Marshall, Missouri, and ran a hotel over there called the Rough Hotel. And this dog became famous all over the state of Missouri. Sam would take the dog around, give exhibitions of its wonders and powers all over the state. And when the dog finally died in 1937, Sam wanted the dog to be buried in the People Cemetery over there at Marshall, and tried to get the city fathers to let him bury the dog in the People Cemetery, which they refused to do at the time, but they said he could bury him outside the gates there. So that's where old Jim was buried, with a stone that says Jim the Wonder Dog. You can go and see it. And later on, the cemetery grew, of course, and they had to move the fence, and so now Jim's in there with the rest of the human beings. Shows you just how smart old Jim was, even in death. So I wrote a little song about it. This is a kind of a talking blues style song. Jim the Wonder Dog. Heard about George Graham Best an old drum, and the case up in Warrensburg, the senator won, by showing how a dog. Jim for Jim. All right. I bet Jim can hear that all the way over. He was sired by the well-known Eugene's Ghost, and his grandsire was known coast to coast as the fabulous chicken champion, Candy Kid. But Jim, he was kind of the runt of the litter. More or less a reject English setter. Sam couldn't even seem to train for hunting birds. But Jim was gentle with the children and he minded real good. Sam started realizing Jim understood just about anything anybody said to him. Why, he could tell one kind of a tree from another, pick out cars just from license plate numbers. Whatever you asked him to find, Jim would go and put his paw on. I said, Jim, a wonderful Jim, never been another dog better than him. Hey, all you dogs out there, let's cheer for Jim. I said, People started coming in to see for themselves. What was being said about Jim was really true. Well, it turned out he not only understood English, but also Greek, a little Italian. There just wasn't any end to the wonders that said to do. Well, put on exhibitions all over the state. College professors tried to prove he was a fake, but nobody ever put a dent in Jim's reputation. Say Jim, the wonderful Jim, never been another dog better than him. Hey, young dogs out there, let's hear for Jim. Jim, the wonderful Jim, never been another dog smarter than him. Hey, all you dogs out there, let's hear it for Jim. Well, Jim finally died in 1937, went right on up to English Center Heaven, to be reunited with Eugene's ghost in the Candy Kid. The Salem asked the city to let Jim be buried with the other folks over in the Union Cemetery. The city fathers allowed that couldn't be done. So Sam buried Jim just across the fence, put up a right nice monument. Anybody can go and see this very day. And you know what's interesting, that over the years since then, the cemetery has grown and had to expand, and now Jim's right in there with the rest of them. I say to Jim, the wonderful Jim, never been another dog smarter than him. Hey, all you dogs out there, let's hear it for Jim. Jim, the wonderful Jim, never been another dog smarter than him. Hey, all you dogs out there, let's hear it for Jim. So the next time you hear about man's best friend, remember this wonderful dog named Jim. And remember, dogs can be just as smart as some people are dumb.
Let's have another hand for Bob. I'll assume I can actually take the credit for urging Bob to write a song about Jim. Thank me for that, or do whatever you want. Let's see. We'll get our next act on, I guess, and then take a break. Once again, I'll just tell you about them. Art Galbraith and Gordon McCann have come all the way from Springfield, Missouri, where they're lifelong residents. I guess they will be unless they have any plans to move. They are well known, really, throughout the United States for their playing of old-time fiddle music. And have recorded some albums for the Rounder Record Group, which is a national folk label, and have attended some very prestigious folk festivals in this country, even more prestigious than this one, the National Folk Festival at Washington, D.C., and others as well. Art is known for a very distinctive style of fiddling, and also for a repertoire that reaches way back in years. And he and Gordon is also known as a collector of folklore. Has done some publishing, worked a lot with Vance Randolph, the Ozark Mountains' best collector of folklore, and published recently an annotated bibliography of Vance's material, which will take quite a while. So I'll get them up there. Please give them a warm welcome from Springfield, Art Galbraith.
Good afternoon. We're coming for a piece today out there. And we're from Springfield. I heard somebody over at St. Joe a couple of years say, where is Springfield? They said somewhere just south of Nevada. So we're south of Sedalia. We're going to play today, since most of you have heard a lot of fiddle music out there. You have a lot of fiddlers. We have a lot of fiddlers. You don't have any idea how many fiddlers there are. Shake the bushes in most parts of this country, and Canada, and Europe, and the British Isles, and there's fiddlers. And the repertoires in this part of the country, there's a lot of tunes you're familiar with. So we thought today we'd stick with mostly some regional tunes that most of you will not have heard. And after you hear them, you'll maybe see why you haven't heard them. But we'll tell you a little bit about this. First, there's a James River runs just south of Springfield into Table Rock Lake. And out east of town, just a couple of miles where Art grew up on the farm, there's a place called McCraw's Ford. In fact, when I was in high school, we used to go out there and have educational meditations out there, and you may have run us off. But this is a tune called McCraw's Ford. And a lot of these tunes have a name, and this probably wasn't written there, but it's been changed. It was probably an original tune, rag or something. We'll play for you, McCraw's Ford. We always thought, my goodness, what a beautiful old Irish waltz. It had pretty words to it. And we were at Woodcraft years ago with Irish fiddlers from Ireland and Scotland. And we thought, well, we'll show them just how we played one of their undoubtedly famous waltzes. So we played it, and they said, what's that? I said, Seamus O'Brien, they had us make a tape. We found that later from the genius of all music, Dr. W.K. McNeil down, he's a folklorist down in Arkansas. That was written by a guy named William Shakespeare Hayes in 1867 in Cincinnati. So, you never know. We'll play Seamus O'Brien. This is better. So she had that on, you did it. Well, you just played it on the autoharp, which is really pretty. You ought to hear him play that. Not that we wanted to get back up here now and do it, but I mean, sometimes when we're not up here late, it really is pretty on that autoharp. You want to watch that? You want me to bring it back? Okay. Tune his family plays a lot. Dixie Blossom's written by a man who's buried in Joplin, Missouri, named Percy Winter. He also wrote Put On Your Old Gray Bonnet, and When You Are a Tulip, and on Moonlight Bay, a whole bunch of good tunes. So here's one called Dixie Blossom.
Add your foot to this one.
At this time, and I want to remind you that Arthur Gordon and Cathy and I and Tom Schroeder and Bob Dyer have tapes and records for sale on that table over there by those two quilts. And I want to remind you that the volunteer fire department pig supper is going to be later this afternoon in about an hour, well, an hour to an hour and a half or so. And the admission for that ticket price is only $4 for an adult, and I think $2 for youth, a little piggy. And so jump right in on that. That should be good. And then, of course, after dinner, we will be having a dance at about 7 o'clock. Liz Schroeder, Tom's wife, will be doing the calling, like the famous, infamous Little Dixie Hoss Air Pullers to be playing for the dance. And I want to remind you that, of course, that this is the festival is sponsored by the Historic Arrowrock Council with support by the Missouri Arts Council, and hopefully your donation, suggested donation of $2, which, considering we have workshops and concert and dance, that's far less than you pay for any one of those three components. Anyway, we'll take a break and be back at about a half hour. Thank you. Start back up here as Cathy and I start to set off on this habit. I can also tell you that if before you leave, if you could sign the guest book here at the counter, and Arrowrock will mail you something about next year's festival. The group here, the Historic Arrowrock Council, has a wonderful publicity system, and we're glad to be able to use it.
Thought we'd oh gosh. Thought we'd open up here with a tune that comes from the Carter family, AP, Sarah, and Little Baby Carter. I love doing Carter family songs. This is one of the songs that was part of their first recording session. It was down in Bristol, Tennessee, a long time ago, called The Poor Orphan Child. Now, with a theme that's as sad as this is, actually the melody is kind of a light-hearted one, so it's kind of a strange combination. We're doing this right. We're both in our friends. Two odd tunes here. This is one, there's some bluegrass musicians out in the audience. They might have been familiar with a tune called Lost Indian. It seems to be a real common tune found all over the country. This is a version of a tune called Lost Indian, where to me it sounds like the Indian's real lost in this case. It's a very obscure version, to say the least, that we learned from a wild and crazy string band called the Indian Creek Delta Boys. They're from Illinois. They did a lot of collecting of tunes, and so this is Lost Indian, and we'll combine it with a tune called Rock the Cradle Blues. Thank you very much.
There's a song here about the devil. The devil song here.
Uh-oh. The devil loses in this one, though, even if it's
The devil, of course, is a pretty tricky guy. And there are a lot of songs about outwitting the devil, a lot of stories about outwitting the devil in American folk culture. If you look through the collection of the English and Scottish popular ballads compiled by Francis Child, which is the primary source of English ballads, British balladry, you look up in Child number 1 is the songs under the title Riddles Wisely Expounded. And in this country, they're sometimes called The Devil's 9 Questions and those kinds of things. A friend of ours up in Massachusetts kind of rewrote this song, a version of his own of this song, which we like a whole lot. It sounds pretty old-timey still, and it's called The Devil in the Garden.
Some of these are riddles that you might have heard before. These songs are pretty familiar, like that I Gave My Love a Cherry, that has those kind of, that's based on the same kind of idea of riddling. Who can outsmart whom? The devil does not win.
And if you want to help us on the refrain of this song, it comes in twice. You can sing, I'll sing a line, and it's weave, wove, and woven.
That sounds easy now, but try it.
Weave, wove, and woven. And then the last part is hee-ho, devil in the garden, devil in the garden, a roving.
Pretty little girl dressed in white, behold her open, walking in the garden alone tonight, walking in the garden without any light. Hee-ho, devil in the garden, devil in the garden rolling. Well, out in the garden she met a man walking, behold her open. She knew she should know she couldn't help but larking, for she knew that she and him was talking. Hee-ho, devil in the garden, rolling.
Well, now, looky here, girl, do you know who I am?
Hee-ho, rolling. Yes, sir, and I'm in a jam, but you're the original Flim Flam man. Hee-ho, devil in the garden, rolling.
Now, looky here, girl, you gotta play my game.
Hee-ho, rolling.
9 hard questions your soul to claim, but you must answer them just the same.
Hee-ho, devil in the garden, rolling.
Well, what is lost and can never be found?
Hee-ho, rolling.
What is the ring that will never roll around? What is the rock that can never break down?
Hee-ho, devil in the garden, rolling. Days are lost and can never be found. Hee-ho, rolling. Ring of the bell will never roll round, and the rock of the cradle will never break down. Hee-ho, devil in the garden, rolling.
Well, what are the strings that can never be tied?
Hee-ho, rolling.
What is the mare nobody can ride? What is the question no one can decide?
Hee-ho, devil in the garden, rolling. Things are complicated all the time. Man's heartstrings can never be tied. Hee-ho, rolling. Oh, like there nobody can ride. And where I'm going, even you can decide. Hee-ho, devil in the garden, rolling.
Well, what is bluer than the sky so blue?
Hee-ho, rolling.
What is truer than me and you? What can you tell the poor old devil to do?
Hee-ho, devil in the garden, rolling. Well, blue is blue and Duncan's well. and E-ho, devil in the garden, devil in the garden, rolling.
Well, fare you well, then, human girl.
E-ho, rolling.
It's God and me and you in the middle. And you speak so smart to the devil's will. You are not mine, you are of this world.
E-ho, devil in the garden, devil in the garden, rolling. E-ho, devil in the garden, devil in the garden, rolling.
If I could help on this, this is one we've been doing for a long time, a camp meeting song that we learned from a guy named Glenn Branscombe down in big metropolis of Owney, Arkansas. This is one that he taught us called Go March Along, and pretty typical of structure of songs of these kind. It has a very repetitious format. So you'll get it after about one listening to. Just substitute fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, and as long as you needed it to get the desired effect. That's right. Anyway, so we'll sing it once. It's a couple of helpful ones. Go march along, I will see you again, I will see you again. Go march along, I will see you on that judgment day. My Father's gone to glory, I will see him again, I will see him again. Go march along, I will see you on that judgment day. Go march along, I will see you again, I will see you again. Go march along, I will see you on that judgment day. My mother's gone to glory, I will see her again, I will see her again. Go march along, I will see you on that judgment day. Go march along, I will see you again, I will see you again. Go march along, I will see you on that judgment day. They're arguing again. Our biggest argument is about tune lists. We always make out these tune lists and we never follow it, so I don't know why we even bother again. A little secret of the parrot situation. This is either two tunes or I guess we mutually decided on. One's a tune that we learned from a fiddler named Graham Townsend up in Canada, originally an Irish tune, a jig called Burial Gap. And then we're going to combine it with a tune here called Jaybird that he also taught us that comes from a totally different tradition. This is a more like Appalachian rhythm tune. So is that right? Yeah. Okay.
Things that I've already told you, so what's the point? We'll just get Gladys Cogswell from Frankfort, Missouri, to come back up here. As you met earlier, Gladys is, like I said, from Frankfort, and she's been telling stories around. For the past a few years, I guess, stories from her own family and culture. I think it's very, I think it's very important in our culture that in Missouri that we all share and celebrate the Black experience in our culture. It's a very rich one and one of the heritage that we owe a lot to. And I'm really glad that Gladys has come and help us do that. And you need this microphone.
There are two things that I always do, no matter how many other stories I tell. I have one standard story that I tell every time because I love it and because I think it has some meaning. And I always open up with the song Kumbaya. And I know that some of you know it, so I'd like you to join me in singing it twice. Kumbaya. Kumbaya, my Lord. Kumbaya. as you get older, when you're doing storytelling, you forget things. Sometimes my mind goes blank. Sometimes I'm telling one story and get into another that has nothing to do with the first story. And so I figured if I sang Kumbaya, that the Lord would help me through this with memory and putting the right story with the right story. Amen. I have a lot of faith in that. As I said earlier, two of the most dominant themes in African American culture is religion and humor. And religion, of course, is good for all of us, no matter what race we are. Whether you believe that or not, that is the way I feel. And I think that during slavery time, and you cannot talk about African American culture, African American history without mentioning slavery, because it was a part of our culture. And I've always been fascinated by slavery and fascinated by the fact that I had ancestors who were slaves. And I was very thankful that they survived the peculiar institution of slavery so that I could live today, because I love life, I love people, and I'm glad to be here. One of the stories that is very prominent that slaves told was the story about Uncle Aaron. And Uncle Aaron was a Georgia slave, and he married and he bought himself, he bought his freedom, and he came to Missouri when his wife's slave master moved to Missouri. And they said Uncle Aaron was very tight, but in the country. Every day, Aaron day, he said, oh, yeah, I got a lot of wish mail, I wish this, wish for that. And so Aunt May said, well, Uncle Aaron, I don't like it, you don't like it, but this bacon ham. So Uncle Aaron looked at it and said, well, okay. So Uncle Aaron went down to the post office to see what happened. And when he got there, the postman said, here's your package, Uncle Aaron. So Uncle Aaron opened it before he finished. So the postman opened up the package. Uncle Aaron, oh, I'm not into that. So isn't this what you ordered? So he said, well, they ordered a bacon ham, and then you ordered, Aaron said, they paid off. And there's a story of a preacher brother. And brother said, I'm just going to. So he started walking, and the brother looked and he saw these fields and all this corn, and he said to him, now, aren't you ashamed of yourself not going to church? Look at all these blessings. Look at all these fields. Look at all this corn you have. Aren't you ashamed of yourself? Don't you think you should give thanks and come to church? So the brother looked at him and said, you may be right, but you should have seen this field when the Lord had it by itself. There was also a story about the Johnstown flood. Now, I don't know why this is or how this is, but somehow black people always know what happens when somebody dies and goes to heaven. They always know what happened in heaven. Or if they went the other way, they know that too. So they talk about John, who died in the Johnstown floods. There was just water everywhere. Well, John was a good man, so he went to heaven. And he met St. Peter. And St. Peter said, well, John, we've been watching you. We're sorry that you died in the flood, but we're sure glad to have you up in heaven. We want you to go around, make yourself acquainted, talk to everybody, be friendly. Everybody here is friendly. You don't have to put on any airs. You don't have to do any work. Just be friendly with everybody. Well, John liked this because John was a friendly person anyway. So John went around talking about this Johnstown flood. So he came to some of the angels and he talked to them. They smiled at John and they talked back and they said, yes, John, we know about the Johnstown flood. We were watching. So he'd go on to somebody else and he'd talk about the Johnstown flood. But people started avoiding John. Even the most friendly people started avoiding John because they knew he was going to talk about the Johnstown flood. So he went up to St. Peter. St. Peter said, how you doing, John? He said, oh, I'm doing okay. I was telling everybody about this Johnstown flood. So St. Peter said, well, John, I think most people know. So John went on about his business. Then he saw this real old man He said, but he doesn't know about the Johnstown flood, that he can't even see. So he started talking to this man about the flood. And told him about how high the water was, how people were trying to swim and everything. And the old man looked at him and said, get away from me, don't you tell me about no flood. I know about floods. So he went over to St. Peter and said, St. Peter, I thought you said everybody was friendly. I thought you said I could tell my story. So St. Peter said, well, what happened? So John told him what had happened. Told him that he had talked to this old man. Said, did he have a real long beard? John said, yes. It was it silvery white? John said, yes. So St. Peter said, well, John, I don't think you should tell him about no flood, because that was Noah. And he knows all about floods. There's also a story about, and this is another thing that you find when you're researching African American history. Most black men's names were John. Everybody was named John. So this John that they talked about was the John who was also a sinner. There were a lot of conversions after the Civil War. A lot of people converted. And this John was no different. He converted. He became a Christian. But before he did, he had to go through trials like most of us do. And this particular John, they had tried to get in the church. And he wouldn't go because he'd rather be fishing. And he told them plain out, there's nothing in that church that's any better than fishing. You can't convince me that I should be in church rather than fishing. So they said, well, we'll just have to pray for John. Just have to pray that one day he'll come to his senses. Well, John was out fishing this particular Sunday morning, very far away from the church. And he dozed off, fell asleep. And when he woke up, there was this great big bear right next to John. But John didn't know whether to pretend he was still asleep, whether to get up and run, whether to try to hit the bear with his fishing pole. So he thought about it. He didn't move, and the bear didn't move. But then John knew he had to make a move. So he did. He jumped up and he started running. Well, he was no match for that bear. He was fast, but he wasn't fast enough. And the bear got hold of him and they started fighting. He flung John to the right, he flung him to the left. Threw him on the ground, kicked him in the air. One time when he kicked him in the air, kicked him so far, John thought, well, maybe I can get away now. So John started running again. But the bear was catching up with him. And he caught John again. And he threw him to the right, threw him to the left, threw him up, threw him down. Till he threw him so far that John made another dash for it. By this time, John got to thinking. He said, now, Lord, I know what I said. I know I said I'd never go to church. I know I said there was nothing about religion that could keep me in the church. But if you help me this time, just help me this one time, I promise I'll go to church every Sunday. And John started running and running and running. And finally, he ran in the church door, opened the door, ran up front, said, hallelujah, hallelujah, I'm saved, I'm saved. Well, everybody was just astonished. Not John, the sinner, the fisherman. But he said, I'm saved, I'm saved, I'm saved. Hallelujah, I'm saved. So pretty soon, the bear comes in the church too. And John said, did you hear me, Mr. Bear? I'm saved. I said I'm saved. So the people gathered around and they started beating the bear and pushing the bear. And they got the bear out the church. The bear started running the other way. So the preacher said, well, John, were you saved from the bear? Or are you saved in your soul? So John said, well, you all saved me from the bear. And now I'm going to try this here religion. Because maybe your God is better in prayer meeting than he is in bear meeting. Thank you. The other story I want to tell you, and I don't know if some of you may have heard it, is about Old Dry Fry. Now, you know, in the early 1800s, especially, there were people who went from door to door and town to town preaching and teaching. And they were called circuit preachers or circuit riders. We didn't have the big fancy churches that we have now. But everybody was welcome. Sometimes they'd come to a town and they'd preach for some chicken. Sometimes they'd preach for a blanket. Sometimes they'd sing, and sometimes they'd get some money. And this particular preacher was named Old Dry Fry. Now, Old Dry Fry was a jackleg preacher. And his main interest was not in saving souls. His main interest was in the fried chicken. Well, you know, we all have to pay for our greed. And Old Dry Fry prayed for his. He went to this house, and he ate so much chicken, and he was eating it so fast, he choked on the chicken bone. Choked him to death. Well, the people in the house got real scared. Because as crooked as he was, everybody knew Dry Fry. So they said, well, if they find Dry Fry here, somebody's going to think we killed him. And then we're going to go to jail. We didn't want to go to jail. Well, let's take him down the street. So they took the body down the street. And they sat it up against the door. Well, the people in that house were getting ready to go out. And they opened the door, and Old Dry Fry fell in. And they looked. Well, everybody knew Dry Fry. They said, oh my goodness, look at this. Dry Fry is dead. And somebody's going to think we killed him. Let's get him out of here right away. So they took him out in the forest and put him up against a tree. Well, these two old crooks who had just robbed the bank were coming through the forest. And they saw this Dry Fry sitting by the tree. Well, it was kind of dark, so at first they couldn't see who it was for sure. Thought maybe it was the law. So they started throwing rocks. And then the body just fell over. And then they went and got a close look. Oh no! It's Dry Fry! Everybody knew Dry Fry, even the crooks. So they said, well, people saw us come this way. If they find this body, they'll think we killed it. We got to do something with it. So they took Old Dry Fry's body to the farm. And this farmer had been missing his corn and missing pigs and missing all kinds of things. And he was determined he was going to get the crook. So when he saw Dry Fry's body up against his barn, he said, aha! I got you now. And he took out his rifle and he started shooting. Well, he went over there and looked down at the body. He said, oh no, that's Old Dry Fry. I can't let anybody see his body here. They'll think I killed him on purpose. I didn't know it was him. I thought it was the crook. But nobody would believe me. So he took the body, took it down by the river. In the meantime, there was supposed to be a baptism by the river. So the people were coming for the baptism, and this little boy who was supposed to be baptized, he came first. And he looked at the body, and he said, oh, that's Old Dry Fry. And he went on about his business. Now, he didn't know that Dry Fry was dead. But then along came this drunk who was going to see the baptism. Because he was an instigator, and he always came to get the free food. You know some of those kind of people, come to get the free food. Well, anyway, he said, hey, Dry Fry. Well, Dry Fry didn't answer. No, Dry Fry, don't you try to get uppity with me. You ain't nothing but a jackleg preacher. You speak to me when I speak to you. Well, naturally, Dry Fry didn't speak. He was stoned, shot, choked. Dry Fry was dead. So he got mad, and he pushed Dry Fry in the river. Well, then he waited for the body to come up, and it did. And he thought maybe he'd swim out, and he didn't. So he said, come on out of here, Dry Fry. I'm going to knock you in there one more time. Well, Dry Fry didn't come out. And then the man realized Dry Fry was dead, and he sobered up real quick. So he said, well, I'll put this body behind a stone and hide it. And when all the people are gone, I'll take it out somewhere. So the people came for the baptism, and Dry Fry didn't show up. They didn't know he was right behind the rock. So they waited and they waited and they waited. And after he didn't show up, they decided, We'll call off the baptism. That drive-by let us down again. He's probably somewhere eating somebody's chicken. One of these days, that drive-by's going to choke on a chicken bone. They didn't know drive-by already had it. Well, the drunk finally came and got the body, and he took it back in the woods. And then some more crooks came. And Dry Fry's body was in this bag, and the crooks had a bag with 2 pigs in it. Well, they put their bag down by a tree. And the drunk had put his bag down by the tree. Well, when the drunk came back from wherever he went, he picked up the bag with the pigs in it. And the crooks, they had gone about their business, and they came back, and they picked up the bag with Dry Fry in it. Well, they went home, and they told their wives, we got some pigs, we got some pigs. So the wives went out, and they were going to cut these pigs open, and they hung the bags up, tore the bag open, and there was Dry Fry. Well, they started screaming and carrying on, and they were so excited and so scared. And then the men came out, and they said, what happened? Where's the pigs? And the wife said, you didn't have any pigs. This is old Dry Fry. So they said, well, what are we going to do? Well, they decided they'd put Dry Fry on a horse, tie him to the horse, and they'd shoot and send him off. So that's what they did. And the horse went riding away and riding away. And they said, stop thief, stop thief.
That's storytelling and the traditional sense of the word. Let's see. Well, our next, I want to bring our next guest out here. I want you to meet some other folks that we've had working on the festival. One is Cathy McLaughlin, who's over there behind the killer counter over there. Cathy is a this most intimate and informal setting as possible, very personal setting. I think it's great that we have this nice air-conditioned room here to do that in. It's great that Park has made this building available to us. And just think, this is probably the only public event this time of year right now that probably there isn't a politician here trying to get your votes for November. Consider yourself lucky. All right. We'll bring Art Galbraith and Gordon McCann back here. We're very glad to have them come all this way from Springfield, and they are highly regarded among fiddle music aficionados here all throughout this country, really, for their exposition of this regional style in Missouri. Art Galbraith and Gordon McCann.
Cathy and Dave, we set up, make a list here and then don't even use it. But we're trying to throw in some of our regional tunes that a lot of you would not have heard up here probably. And Dave, you got to get it straight. It's Springfield, not Springfield. Springfield. I can always tell how it is. Let's see. What's
Picture again. Picture again.
Yes, it's called Rocky Mountain. play, we haven't played this in a long time. That arch slide, you think you did? That's one of yours. This is kind of a ragsy or whatever you call it. Honky tonk, I always call it. And then we'll just on the front porch.
Ready to go?
Get this one, I think.
We can play it on the way back.
Yeah.
I need to,
I don't care for
I
you.
don't know whether I have that or not.
I don't know what this is like. I don't really like the area. I understand he's really good.
Hear it.
Good too.
This is peekaboo waltz. Now there's a peekaboo waltz that everybody else plays, but there's a peekaboo waltz that his family plays that is not the same. So we'll play it for Galper's peekaboo waltz.
Huh? Yeah.
We'll play another horn pipe here. Play one called Fisher's Horn. We didn't leave when you came in. No, I'm afraid to say it. That's Saturday night, you know. I really think that's one of your simple girls. Let's see. Texas to me. About 19 months. All the tunes that were asked to play, all these years, and the art before me, when I was the tune that you hear the most of is Red Wing. That everybody knows Red Wing. You get in fact, when we get on the grounds type deals where you play on the ground, and a passing crowd kind of come stand 5 minutes going, we'll play that 50 times, you know. But that brings to mind that I got a call. Now this is stretching the blanket. This is a true story. I'm making this one. A couple of years ago, I got a call from a little student out of SMSU. And she said, Mr. McCann, I've been told that you know a lot about old songs and all that. She said, I'm doing a paper in class in the music department on early American tunes. I thought, well, you ballads. I said, no, I really don't want to give you a try. She said, listen, these titles, she said, they're just old and obscure. And she said, I just know you won't know anything. I said, well, go ahead, Max, go ahead. She said, well, this first one's really weird. She said, it's called Don't Fence Me In. And I said, well, the other one's Redbird, what made you think of that story? But I said, my gosh, you know, old and crap, they're old and obscure. I said, that makes us old and obscure. She hadn't done her homework. Play Redbird. That's all I was.
when we play somewhere, especially if there's a lot of gray-haired people there. We play something that was popular in the late 30s and early 40s, I guess. It's called, it's kind of when you went to the dance and you took your best girl and you danced with some of the other girls, but the last one you danced with better be her. So this is all she says for me.
McCann. I think the past three festivals here, we've really featured Central Missouri fiddlers, and I'm hoping that some of you out there have developed enough of a ear for that to realize that you've heard something quite different and distinct, and can have a better appreciation of how fiddle styles can vary even in this one state that we live in. I got somehow sidetracked when I was talking about other things. There's some other things I wanted to mention here. One is I wanted to thank Virginia Fisher. I guess is not here right now, but she's the one who has put up all her quilts. Yes, they all belong to her, including the one back here, which she made herself. And putting that up, and the peacock feathers from, I guess, Adam, her peacock. I think